It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome, everyone, to the Divas That Care Network and an episode of Words That Work. I'm your host, Naomi McDonald, an animal communicator, author, light body worker, and teacher, dedicated to telling true stories that change lives. Lacy's Purpose, Part 3, is a powerful, life-changing story about ancestral patterns and belief. And why? How can it be so powerful? We all have them, parents, grand and great. We all carry with us beliefs and emotions from our heritage. And some are gifts that serve us beautifully throughout our lives, and we happily pass them forward. But then others, not so much, and we strive to be independent of them. And quite often, we do not realize that family beliefs and trauma are sabotaging our happiness, our prosperity, and yes, even our health. So, let's see, fearless listeners, if any of you nod your heads or have an aha moment when I rewind a memory and share a short recap of how a tiny Maltese opened the door for a rigid, angry, and wounded man to find gratitude and grace in his ancestral heritage. So here we go. This is bigger than we can address at Paws Around Town, Sarah said. We will be at your office in Owasso on Wednesday morning at 10. Then she coughed and chuckled, or I might just shoot Larry and put him out of his misery. He's so wound up all the time. It's even affecting Lacy's behavior. Right on time, Wednesday morning, I gestured to Sarah and Larry. You two sit over there in those two white and gray chairs. And I sat in a solid gray leather across from a white metal coffee table. You can let Lacy down if you wish. Mary Catherine is my office dog, but she loves having someone to come play with. And then my red wire-haired dachshund jettisoned from her office bed. Sniff Lacy, and the race was on. Under my desk, over the chaise lounge, around and around the two dogs sprinted, toenails beetle clacking loudly on the wood floors. When they knocked over a basket of rattles, Lacy went tumbling head over teacup. Mary Catherine pounced, and the two rolled together. I guess Angel Lacy really is a dog? This is the Lacy we see all the time. Larry's belly laugh caused Sarah and I to do the same, and an awesome merry lightness filled my office. Yep, he gasped. You are witnessing Lacy terror. She plays with our Maine Coon cat Buster like this. He's bigger, but she's faster. That has to be a sight. How fun and a way to just bring a whole bunch of joy in your house, I said. And then I internally marveled at how deeply and spiritually connected our pets can be to us. Like what Larry and Sarah had with this lovely dog, but then how utterly playful and dog-like she was on the surface. It was just amazing. And then I sighed, you know what? We better get to work. This is long overdue. Sarah looked sympathetically at her handsome husband. 1 minute you're laughing and happy just like this, and then the next you turn inward and you're brooding and you're angry. And it's like all of you and all your emotions in your mind are at war and you're just on overdrive. And honey, something's gotta give. The misery on Larry's face, coupled with Sarah's words, told me why they had driven 2 hours to my office. This was something very important that needed to be processed and worked through. So I said, okay then, why don't I just listen? Yeah, well, at least this time, I know you and Lacy are going to shake up my world. So I'm a little bit ready. And then I have to tell you, I'm a whole lot scared. I don't understand this. Well, I know, but please know that you're in a loving, safe space in my office. And you're here with Sarah and Lacy. And then I let a big old smile accompany eyebrow wiggles and added, and you're also with your cute, light body worker shaman lady. My glib comment did exactly what I hoped. Larry let out a deep breath, chuckled, and said, well, I guess I didn't know how angry I was all the time. In fact, I would have denied it. And then Lace came along. He smiled at her. Anyway, I would have never believed that a dog could change somebody. And I'd have never thought it was possible for me to laugh out loud. And just like I just did. And you know what? I love it. And so I recognize more all the time how Lacy has let the softer and happier side of myself just come out and be a part of me. Yes, and that's wonderful. And I firmly believe, I said, that animals come to us to help us be happier but better humans. And quite often they do that by bringing up our stuff. But this is a beautiful example of that. And you know, I just might need to write this down as a story. But the most important thing is being here right now shows us that you're up to the challenge of facing the uncomfortable emotions. Yeah, well, Larry said, when you or Lacy, the last time I was here, or somebody, slammed me with a memory of my pa shooting my dog, well, it opened up a whole can of worms. And I've stewed, and I've remembered, and I've remembered, and I've stewed so much. And then it just brought up all the tenseness and the yelling and the anger, always in our house. And then Larry's eyes squinted shut and his jaw tensed. Worried, I glanced at Sarah as we both witnessed an anguished shadow come over Larry's face. But finally, after several heartbeats, he said, even though I always wanted to be different from the man, I've realized I'm like my pa. I'm just like all of them, all the way back to who knows where in my heritage. The stuff I've done and the people I hurt. I'm ashamed. I am ashamed. And all this feeling stuff is confusing and it sucks. And that's when Sarah sat up a little straighter in her chair. After Larry's mom passed, we found this in her memory box. And she handed me a tattered, yellowed, black and white photo of 3 people standing on a cliff overlooking an ocean. My dad, my grandpa, and great-grandpa, Larry said. I said, rugged square jaws, wide set eyes. I can see you in all of them. Oh my goodness, it's like all these images have just been passed forward. But tell me, what else do you see? I studied the old depiction and then smiled. 3 very stern, serious faces. Exactly. That's where I come from. A whole line of tough, angry men. Yes, but why did you feel better or worse after you saw the photo? Why did it affect you so much and bring so much up for you? Well, when I really studied those faces, I looked deep into those faces and it occurred to me that all the men in my line were hard, tough, and mean as hell. Ah, so you recognize that they were a product of their heritage. And maybe that made you think a little deeper? Well, yeah, that made me sad. Really sad. I just wish they could have found the happiness I have. Maybe a little peace. I wish my ma could have had what Sarah and I have together. You know, I understand, and what you're going through right now, it's so hard. It's danged hard. And with the emotions and memories returning full force, what you're feeling is quite natural. Yes, Sarah said, but what can we do about it before I naturally implode? Or make him sleep in the guest room? Well, we don't want you in the guest room. So we'll start by, I want you to understand that you've made a first huge step because you've recognized that the anger and harshness that you've lived in for so long doesn't feel good. It doesn't have to be there. And it needs to change. And then the second step, and this is big too, that you're getting a glimpse of where it came from. You know that it comes from and passed forward from the men in your heritage. And then the third step is to identify, honor, and release the personality traits that served your lineage, but it's just not right for you in this lifetime. And then the last step, we can embrace the gifts from these men that came before you, and we really can bring them forward. And it's a beautiful thing. And actually, this work is said to heal and help 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Sarah sucked in a big breath and said, "Oh, Larry." Then she looked at me with big white brown eyes. "We're going to have a son in 6 months. "Oh my dog, that's wonderful." "Scary as hell," Larry said. That's another reason that we're here," Sarah said. "Larry's petrified. He won't be a good dad. He's petrified that he's going to repeat some of the things that his dad did. And I do understand. It is scary." Oh, yes, I thought. A baby is the reason that all of this is coming up for the man. And it's perfect. How perfect. Because without the desperation that Larry's feeling right now, he most likely would not be sitting in the chair across from me and having the courage to address the emotional roller coaster that he's on. "Nothing," Larry said, "would make me happier than to think that all this misery I've been in lately could help my ancestors and my children. But I just don't see how. I just don't see how in the world that we could change anything. Let her show us, honey, because we want the best for our son and my daughter Chloe, and you know she's grown to love you so deeply, and we just want the best for both of them. Yes, I said, I think it's time. And right here, right now, we can set the intention for change, and please know it really is easier than you might think. Larry sat back in his chair and relaxed his shoulders and gave a resigned nod. Okay, let's begin. To start with, study the photo. Let the images of your ancestors seep into your mind and heart like you did with the beautiful spirit of your dog, Jessie. And then, when I asked you questions, say the first thing that pops in your head. Don't think, just speak. And I grabbed a notepad really quickly. Larry closed his eyes and nodded. And then I began. Thank you, beautiful men, for bringing Larry into this lifetime. And from the place of great wisdom that you now reside, please tell us the emotions that it is time for your loved ones that you have and will come behind you. What does not serve Mr. Larry and them in this lifetime? And then the words that Larry spoke came so quickly that I had to scribble on the paper I'd grabbed. Unbending. Only the tough survive. Women should only serve and have no voice. Kindness and happiness have no place if you are to provide for your family. You must fight back, or you will be silenced. And then an eerie silence filled the room. But Larry and Sarah echoed, "Wow," at the same time. And then Larry said, "I had no idea I could do that, but how can it be real? It just came out of my mouth and I feel like I just made it up." Well, exactly. Where do you think what you made up came from? I grinned and asked, so the important thing is, do those words feel right? Do they feel right? I guess it does. It might not be my place to say, Sarah said, but it feels right to me too. So I took the paper that I had written on, listing all that was to be released, and I rolled it up. And I handed it to Larry and said, "Your intention is to willingly and completely bring up the thoughts and emotions, even though it's going to feel yucky, that your ancestors wished to release. And once you have them, once you feel them, once you have them welled up in your heart, release them by blowing it all into this paper." And once that was done, we walked outside. I burned the paper, and we watched the old emotions Larry released travel away as ashes in the wind. "One more step," I said, "and now is really the juicy part, the good part. But we need to connect with your ancestors one last time." Larry seated himself, closed his eyes, took another breath, and said, "It seems easier this time." I nodded. Please, beautiful men that are here to help us, state to Larry the gifts that you wish to share as your lineage goes forward. Please state from the beautiful place that you reside now what you wish to go forward. And then it happened again, just like a telephone line had been opened up and the words flowed. Tenacity, respect for all life, in every gender, diligence, strength, compassion, deserving of all the peace and happiness life has to offer. And then, like before, an eerie calmness filled my office space, but also a beautiful richness in the silent tears flowing down the faces of the man and his wife across from me told me that they had fully embraced the wonder in those words. I reached for a palm-sized rose quartz, repeated the words with all the reverence and beauty that they implied. I held the crystal in my two palms and blew those words into there. And then I turned to Larry and Sarah and asked, are you ready to accept your ancestors' wishes and gifts? Both of you. Sarah nodded, and then I smiled and said, all three of you. And Sarah patted her tummy. Her brown eyes looked deeply into Larry's blue ones. I placed the crystal over Sarah's heart and blew those perfect gifts through it and into her body. And after doing the same for Larry, I placed that pink crystal in his hands and folded his fingers around it. And by then, I'm blinking back my own tears and said, this is like a rebirth. It's like a shifting in consciousness as you go forward with the blessings and gifts from those who have come before you. And please know that your children and your children's children are deserving of all the beauty and love and happiness that life has to offer. That was beautiful, Sarah said. Can I do that sometimes? Certainly, I said. You're welcome to come and make an appointment. But really, anyone can hold a simple ceremony for themselves, or it can be done in a group, as well as it could be done for the male and female lineage lines. And it really is a powerful healing tool. Lacy rose from her sleeping place by Mary Catherine. I picked her up and gave her a big hug. You're going to have a little brother. Isn't that wonderful? And I stroked her white, silky fur and whispered, thank you. And I wish to take the time to acknowledge the animals that come into our lives, and they allow us to experience every plethora of emotions, wide and small and good and bad and uncomfortable and joyous to the bottom of grief. But they do that so we may grow and find peace and grace on this university earth. And thank you so much, Divas That Care, for a network dedicated to enriching lives. And thank you, dear listeners, for joining Lacy, Sarah, Larry, and I as we have walked this path together. And if you would like information on the more in-depth ancestor work, please contact me at naomibmcdonald@gmail.com. Thanks so much, beautiful people, for being here today and listening. And bye until next time.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.